Hello and welcome. This is the Daily Dharma. My name's Dina. Thank you so much for joining. Today we are well within the portal of the equinox, and where I'm at, it's the fall equinox. So we're talking about the gathering of the darkness and the receding of the light. And this will often have many of us doing things that are metaphorically similar to preparing for hibernation, like gathering our resources, um, bringing our outdoor things closer to the home if you're in a climate that gets cold in the off seasons, things like that. And then so we can, in the summer, we'll see people getting out, wanting to socialize, and then the darkness times that really lends itself on a subliminal level, or more conscious for some of us, to the desire to go within the home, within the self. So we've got some herbals kicking in the bowl. Take a moment, set your energies. Let's take some deep breaths, unifying our energy for a clear reading. And let's go ahead and get started. It does look like it's going to rain. I appreciate the color palette of the climate right now because there's a lot of moisture in the air and I can see the clouds. There's a brightness, but also a misty thickness to the atmosphere here, as if it does want to rain. So we'll see if we get some water, but I like it also because the creek in the back is visible. Usually it's too bright. So the first one of the decks that I'm going to get into is I've just mixed my Tao Te Ching deck with my Art of War deck, and I'm super excited about that. I didn't realize how closely they were in size, and I think this is going to help me with my switching between decks. I love to get them all in. So today we've also got the mixed Kali and Kuan Yin deck for an oracle, as well as the mixed shamanic deck with the various oracle pictures in there. They're going to speak to us. And then we've got the sacred geometry deck. All right, let's see. What are our messages from the Tao Te Ching Art of War? Hope you guys are doing good today. It's a little bit more of a chill vibe today for me. Maybe that's the space where the readers are. All right, we've got a couple of these, 3 popping out. Number 35 is on top of the Tao Te Ching. She who is centered in the Tao can go wherever she wishes without danger. She perceives the universal harmony, even amid great pain, because she's found peace in her heart. Music or the smell of good cooking may make people stop and enjoy, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. When you look for it, there's nothing to see. When you listen for it, there's nothing to hear. When you use it, it's inexhaustible. Yeah, it's the great void that we all are put in contact with when we're in between diversions, is that expansiveness that's like that fresh, deep breath in between, like heavy sigh. All right, what comes next? And so often we can get caught up in the to-do list and the manifesto and saying, oh, well, okay, check, 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 next, next, next. And I think that there's, at this time of the year, this moving into the darkening phase here is more so that breath of the in-between, like, okay, the harvest is starting to wane. We got to get a lot more things done in the next few weeks, but then it's going to be time to cuddle up on the couch in some comfy clothes with a nice throw blanket or something, to start having those good meals like the heavier, thicker soups and chili and that kind of thing. That's some of our favorites. And it seems like that comforting behavior is part of what we're talking about here. Um, and there's something else here. Yeah, it's like the diversion can be so stimulating that it seems like that's the good cooking. Um, but there's a difference between the influences and what we're perceiving when we're go, go, go versus when we're in meditation, relaxation, reflection. This is a time of great reflection. And so, one other thing with this card is like I've heard the phrase Dorito uh, taste buds. And this to me is talking about how, it's harder and harder to appreciate the flavor of raw fruits and vegetables, for instance, when we're so used to that tangy sours and the different shock candies that kids will like, and the full out sugar smarties and things like that, whatever it might be for you. And it's like when we're so hooked on things like sugar, social media, technology, however that comes across, or distractions in general, those stimulating flavor profiles obscure the simplicity. So, one thing to get back into natural cooking and eating, if that's a thing for you, one of the things that works when I'm deviating from what I like to do is I will take several different types of fruits and or vegetables, usually vegetables in my case, and I'll put different things together in different ways. And then I may want to have several different vegetables, but then I know that they all require different cooking times. I know that I want them to each taste just a little different. So I'll cook them separately somewhat with their own companion things. And then I might put them together later, or if nothing else, then on the plate. And then by having something like 4 or 5 different vegetables on your plate, you really get a variety of stimulation and exciting flavor profiles, especially when you start to use things like your sacred herbs and play around with your oils, and the way that things come together can be so delicious. And that can work for somebody who's trying to get away from too many carbs, or if you're trying to get away from eating red meats or different types of foods, processed foods. Um, just some of that. Number 66 is the next from the Tao Te Ching. All streams flow to the sea because it's lower than they are. Humility gives it its power. If you want to govern the people, you must place yourself below them. If you want to lead the people, you must learn how to follow them. The master is above the people, and yet no one feels oppressed. She goes ahead of the people, and no one feels manipulated. The whole world is grateful to her because she competes with no one. No one can compete with her. So there's so much in these Tao Te Ching messages. For some, it may be like we're so caught up in the instant gratification process that sometimes it can be like, so what? Get to the point. Just tell me how to think about what you're saying, instead of actually relaxing into the words and letting them become more relevant to our subjective and personalized story and lessons and so on. Our personal intuition will have various different words that will hit us completely differently than another person over here that needs a similar message, but it hits their situation so much different. So instead of telling people how to think, to just give them the resources can be one of the things coming up now, or us not really needing to have any type of control, or to be willing to be allowing other individuals to have a lot to say and just say, that's interesting, tell me more. And just putting those little simple little key phrases or questions to ask them more, like, so do you feel that blah blah blah, fill in the blanks with that one. It can be a sign of great humility when we want to see, witness, and explore with another individual and share notes. And not all of these individuals are going to in the moment understand or have the practice under their belt that they can actually reflectively conversate. And I've found myself in that situation many times where I have so much to say, and then afterwards I'm like, wow, I didn't really get a chance to get to know that other person. And so sometimes we really, especially when we are, sometimes the more that you're educated or the more evolved or knowledgeable on any subject matter that you are, sometimes it can even be, as counterintuitive as it seems, it can be a little bit um, not as helpful when we just go in and just push all this information at an individual who's just at sponge state, and they can listen and they can hear and they can resonate, but they can't really grasp what the crux is of the situation. So within our humility, it's like we understand not only that we know a lot, but sometimes we'll have to pick and choose a little bit and offer up, like, oh, I have so many thoughts about that. Sometime when we're not on this topic, let's talk about that, and by putting it off to the side, you focus in the main of the stream. I'm hearing mainstream. And there was something else here about learning how to follow the people. This is something that's been coming up. And perhaps I was phrasing it wrong with saying that, sometimes we crave a little bit of the drama because it's evidence of that intense emotional broadcast that others have. But it also helps us to learn through where the other individuals are at on their timelines, in their evolutionary journey, what they pay attention to, what they care about, and how they feel about things, which can be so much different than where we're at on our spiritual journey or whatever else. Um, and by sharing these narratives, by sharing in others, and by following individuals that are different than ourselves, then it can help us to really be a more appropriate leader, because then we're not going to be broadcasting um, moral mores and dictates and the dogma that we would have encountered without even witnessing or knowing that we are in the operation of dogma. And I know that I've done that too, but I think that we're all learning here together. Um, Also, it helps to know what everybody else needs to know before telling them what we're most interested in now, because our interests now are based on all of these stepping stones of personal relevance that others don't necessarily share. And so when we can broaden the topic, when we can understand how to create metaphors and reflective ideas that can help supplement our messages, that can really help. It's like adding the spices to the vegetables and adding the vegetables to the plate and allowing people to understand, oh, I like this. Here, when it stands alone, it's kind of blah, or when it's prepared and served this way, aggressively or combatively, it's not palatable. But over here, because I understand why I care, for instance, now I can listen to the context of what's developing. Um, so yeah, if you feel like you know more on a topic than another individual, you can um, you can find yourself, maybe different people in the past have found themselves kind of dismissing, or I'm sorry, I'm um, way into this, or um, somehow downplaying the value or what you're into. And there's another word here, but I think that if you know, you know. But when you know what you know, then there's no need to overpower others with the gravity and the electricity of what you have. It's like we don't have to take out the heart paddles and shock somebody into awareness of what we have when their heart is, beating of its own accord in its own drum. It's not for us to keep zapping each other, but to be more gentle within our interactions. And that's how we can really start to work together, because everybody has their niche, everybody's doing something. And when we try to do it all alone, like some of us, myself included, I get myself into situations where I may be asking the wrong people or asking the wrong ways. I'm not sure. Maybe there was more for me to learn. I think all of this and more, right? In our situations, whatever it is we're trying to push through, we've been in these situations, taking these step-by-step approaches on purpose and for a purpose, so that it could be as it's intended to be, to place us in that divine timing. And so once we get to that point, then we're able to convey the messages and to do the magic and the work, the sacred work that we're here to do. And then people can be grateful for the work that we're contributing, instead of feeling somehow like preached at or judged or told that they should show up in a certain way. Like, oh, if you're spiritual, you should really say namaste every time, and if that's your thing, then that's your thing. But it doesn't have to be. And recently at our alternative spiritualist metaphysical chapel, we had one of our church elders that was giving, we were in circle, and she was giving the closing prayer. And at the end of the prayer, she said, "Goodbye." And then she judged herself, and people giggled because it was funny, because it's like, yeah, peace out. Way to be, God. It's, why not? Do you think that the universe has no sense of humor? We can look at our lives and see that somebody's got to have a sense of humor, because some of these things, even though they're intense and crazy in the situation, when we can pan out, it's like if we saw that on some kind of book or something, it would be like, we could get a chuckle out of it, because that's life. So that's 66. So be strong, hold steady. When a close relationship like a marriage goes wrong, the resulting breakup is never easy. But as soon as you're ready, move quickly. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Lay everything out on the table. Keep your counsel, and don't be rattled by bullshit tactics. Hallelujah. The quicker you get it sorted, the quicker you can move on. Remember, you're probably stronger than you may think. Even if you know that you're strong and courageous. Sun Tzu said, "Let your rapidity be that of the wind, your compactness be that of the forest. Be like fire, an immovability like a mountain." That's beautiful. So yeah, the wind comes in ebbs and flows, gusts and furies. It can blow down buildings and pick up houses and move them across town. And yet it can also be gentle. It can just tease the tips of our hair. Compactness, that of a forest. If you know the undergrowth, you can even see behind me, the edges have all of this rich foliage that will grow because they get the sun. But deep within the forest, the sides of the trees don't have too many live limbs, especially do not have very many leaves, because the leaves require the light to provide for the photosynthesis. And so they tend to be the more compact, the more straight up and tall and thin and skinny they are as they push to the surface, because those are the only trees that can actually survive. The rest of them die out early if they cannot reach for the break in the canopy and reach for the light. So it's that about being aligned, a pillar of our own values, and to reach for the light. And to be like fire, to be able to consume and transform our nutrients into energy, to spend that energy, and to then leave behind us in our wake the fertile ashes that can be repurposed and cast over the garden as compost. And immovability like a mountain? Absolutely. So then under the deck we have pick your battles, And yeah, it's talking about our energy time, knowing your own biorhythms and when you have your peak energy can be one of the things coming in. Like many people need a nap by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Many people are just getting in their stride, and maybe that's due to your healthy routines and whether or not you need to get to bed at an earlier hour or get more nutrients or get a more restful sleep, so on. Soldier's spirits keenest in the morning. By noonday it's begun to flag, and in the evening his mind is bent only on returning to camp. That is the art of studying moods. And if you have someone that you're conveying messages to, if it's late in the night, you don't want to perhaps keep bringing things up unless everybody's like bright-eyed and inspired and excited, right? So maybe if this is something in your family, for instance, you might benefit from having. I saw this picture of a clock recently where somebody took the face of the traditional clock and they shaded in different colors all across the different hours. And um, after school, it's like, come in, get a healthy snack, and then do your homework, and then get some outdoor fresh air, playtime, and then start to relax and have some dinner time, and then get yourself cleaned up and more relaxed time, get yourself settled into some type of more calm state before then lights out in bed. You can do it how it fits with your personal biorhythms and the rhythm of your household, but routines can do so much, and spontaneity within routines can also do so much. So, as usual, we get this huge stack. I don't know how everybody else always gets one by one. We're starting out with the completion card here, which is really nice because we're ending one cycle and moving into the next with this equinox. And so as we're closing down the season, we're harvesting whatever lessons and knowledge that we've come into being. We're perhaps letting go of certain friendships and associations and relationships and jobs, moving home, whatever it is for you. There's some cycle moving and closing out. And this is going to be something that then seeds your future sense of self. Wrong side. Oh, look at this. We have the wind coming through. And then we have the smoky mirror, looking into our own inner duality and the reasons perhaps behind some of these habits we were talking about between nourishment, flavor, stimulation, understimulation, meeting others where they're at, being humble and flexible and yet firm of light. I think that you understand what I'm saying. But there's a closing out, the winds are shifting, and we're seeing through some type of veil here. Maybe reflection, more meditation, time by near water, or even some type of immersive, what is that? Sensory deprivation tank. That does sound so neat. I will have to try that sometime. And then we've got curiosity with the stranger here. I'm going to get all these out and see what else. We have taming the wind. You don't say. I'm going to put that I'm kind of going 1, 2, 3, 4 from the camera's reversed from left to right. And then I started a new row here underneath completion and wind. We have taming the wind. So yeah, the winds of change and being able to harness things. We're coming through with this completion with newfound awareness of perhaps why something didn't work for us in the past, honing our message, offering our technique, our gifts, our mindsets, our narratives, and being able to break through a new level here. Yeah, and there's more feathers coming in. It's like some type of rite of passage where something is coming into view. Maybe you're getting back into your own wilderness, into nature. And then we have the Watchers, transpersonal. I kind of felt that when we were looking at this stranger card, and I didn't want to say it, but yeah, I felt like that this card is somebody's leaning forward. They're leaning into what you say, what you are speaking about or demonstrating what you've been able to produce or demonstrate. And yeah, I think there's a cohesive element here of this individual really comes through for me with all of those elements. So we had that the elementals coming through with the forest and the wind and the mountain and the fire here. Look at how we've got the fire, we've got wings, we've got the forest in the background. In this case, it's an evergreen forest, and the water at his feet. It's like this individual is also taming the elementals, tapping into the resources of the natural environment here. Um, and so you're speaking somewhat the same language and you're able to communicate with each other. So that's quite interesting. But yeah, there's some type of a collaboration happening here. It may be at first with just a few unique individuals, but I think that what we're getting here is a group of people, and I've been seeing this a little bit, interested in creating personally a little bit of a forum with some of my individual friends that are interested in some of the things I'm interested in, but they have such a different perspective than myself. And I thought, if we could create a little bit of a roundtable discussion, creating with topics, we might have to shelf certain things and create their own little episodes to keep things on the topic at hand. But it seems like this would be something quite interesting. And perhaps we could do this in a live broadcast where other individuals are able to also offer their own insights, their own questions, and so on, and really connect our own grid, because we're all in all of these vastly remote from each other geographic locations. Some will find that there's other individuals within their community of their state or their vicinity that are actually tuned into the same messages, and some will find their soul tribe across the world. And I think that it's coming time for that. And I think that the illumination of the individual that's going to be able to be displayed is going to be witnessed by the other individuals that are also on that same or similar trajectory, within the same, getting the same messages, wanting those same things, to create the dialogue, to create the platforms, to create the sacred knowledge and the return to the natural world. Garden of Venus, talk about return to the natural world. And I'm always seeing the hummingbirds in the cards. And yeah, you may be interested in gardening or flowers, floral, anything that creates beauty in your world. This is a very feminine energy, and it's like the divine feminine essence that wants to embrace the world, that wants to nurture and incubate the consciousness and help and develop and bolster the spirits of those around them. You may want to create some type of retreat or a demonstration garden or a community garden, something along those lines, where other individuals get the space that's necessary to allow them to do the things that, let's say, somebody in an apartment building on the side of the building that faces no sun, they can't necessarily have the plants that they're drawn to. And getting that time in nature is so vital, literally vital to our well-being, because we need the light to create our own sense and process that's similar to photosynthesis. Um, the integration and transmission of the vitamin D and the light codes and all of that you can get in the cosmic influx of energies that are zapping us on our getting our intuitive hits, and really stimulating and circulating the electromagnetic frequencies of the biorhythm and the body itself. So here it is, that light in the dark room of the apartment building, perhaps. So how do you incorporate what you need in your life in order to get around the obstacles that have been placed in your way? those are some of the creative ideas that just came out before I knew what I was going to say next. And so other people can spontaneously accidentally give you some of these answers as well. And there are more options than you might realize at first. So, dust devil, moving out of stagnation. So, also, you may need to clean up your environment, dust, get some of the toxins, some of um, the little nasties can be hidden in the pollen, in the dust mites, in the um, dander on pets, and the things that they might or might not roll in or go running off and sniffing and eating, then let's think about that. Are they walking around the carpet and you want to do your yoga, you want to lay down and sit on the floor, or your kids do? Those kind of things do run through my mind. And so it's kind of like, not to gross anybody out or anything, but it's kind of talking about how those little things can be incremental and then exponential in creating greater health. I'm seeing I have an Amazon delivery up here. I didn't realize I was being listened to, but here I am in front of a camera, right? So we're at the end of the broadcast. Let's go ahead and get a couple of these code cards from the Sacred Geometry deck. There we go. There we go. All right, underneath of the deck, we have soul time. There's that reflection time, whether you're seeing this as a temporary or a recent passing completion time. There's also more incubation time coming on the horizon with this shift into darkness for many. In darkness, don't mistake that for obscuring and darkness and in sadness, but incubation of the divine feminine, the darkness, the opportunities for greater discernment, the opportunities to partake in some of your hobbies and your passions. Maybe some of us automatically default to going and sitting on the couch under the blanket in the winter, and then all of a sudden it gets to be spring and we're like, where did the winter go? I was so bored, I didn't do anything cool. Well, get out some of your hobbies, get out a sketchbook, a notepad, sculpt, form some wood, do woodworking, renovate your home. There's something about getting inspired to remember what things are fun and interesting. What would we do if we could do anything? Because those things are helping this growth cycle and helping things to ultimately materialize. Because whatever we're drawn to doing in our fun times, if we can make that into our calling and our work, or incorporate it within those objectives, even if that's just talking to people and getting inspired, those are the things that feed our soul. Those are the things that feed the earth and the collective in turn. As we are fed, we also nourish and feed others. So that's how, as we devour, we restore. That's how, as the forest tries to flourish, it also dies back in time and sheds its old limbs and its leaves and recirculates and recycles all of that life force energy into what is being cast off. So that's all the time we have. Let's see if we can split to a Kali Kuan Yin deck. Empress of the Pearl, she's got her chest out, but that's about